These are the 1.3b notes for PreCalc. We're going to be talking about piecewise functions. As you can see, each of our graphs are in multiple different pieces. So in order to evaluate them from a graph, you have two steps. First, find the x value on the graph. So this is going to represent your x value right there, f of 8. And then we just write down the corresponding y value. So for f of 8, 8 would be right here. And we can see that the graph is at 0. So our answer is 0. For f of 1, we can see that 1 is right here, but I have an open circle and a closed circle. I always want to focus on the closed circle as my answer. So that closed circle is at -5 for the y. What about f of 5? F of 5 I see is over here. This is where 5 would be. And I can see that I have a closed circle and an open circle. I want to focus on the closed circle, which looks like it's at -1. All right, example number 2, f of 6. Here is 6. I look down to my graph right there, and I write down the y value of -5. F of 3, right here. Again, ignore the close. You want to focus in on the open circle, which happens to be at 5. Our last graph here, notice that there's a piece missing in the middle. It kind of jumps from one section to the other. So f of 9 would be right here. Looks like it's happening down at -2. F of -4, if you notice, it's got an open circle there, and there's no closed circle anywhere at -4. So when that happens, we say it's undefined. F of -7, -7 would be right about there. I look up to my graph and I can see I have the graph located at 4 for the y value. And if there is no dot, it's automatically a closed dot. A line is just a bunch of dots all put together. All right, and then f of 1. 1 is right here, and I don't see any part of the graph there. So that would be another undefined. So that's how we do it for graphs. Let's talk about how we do it for equations. So, apologies, these should be 1 and 2. I just kept on numbering from the other side. All right, so from an equation, you have two categories, two pieces that things could happen in, and this is kind of our check area. So if we have f is f of 3, we're going to try to figure out, does it fall into this category, x is greater than or equal to 5, or does it fall into the x category, x is less than 5? So I think about the number 3. Is 3 greater than or equal to 5? No. All right, is 3 greater than or equal to 5? No. Is 3 less than 5? Yes. So because 3 is less than 5, we want to make sure we use that equation. Once we decide which equation we're using, which interval it falls into, then we actually do the math. And 3 squared is 9. All right, now we do f of 10. So we got to figure out which category it falls into. Is 10 greater than or equal to 5? Yes. Is 10 less than 5? No. So we want to use this top equation this time, 3x plus 1. And we'll plug in the 10. 30 plus 1, 31. So the math is actually pretty easy. It's just making sure you have the correct interval. Next problem, example number 5. Find f of 7. So let's check to see which one of these categories 7 falls into. Is 7 less than -4? No, it's not. Is 7 greater than 0? Yes, it is. So we're going to use the absolute value of x minus 2. And we'll plug in a 7. Absolute value of 5 is 5. Absolute value, remember, is always a positive. It's the distance from 0. And also, you don't have to write this stuff out every time, this stuff up here every time. If you can do that part in your head, that's perfect. All right, next one, -1. Let's check -1. Is -1 less than -4? No. Is -1 greater than 0? Also no, which means neither of these categories work for me. When that happens, we just write undefined. All right, next problem. Here we have 3 pieces of the graph. So f of 6. Let's see which one works. Is 6 less than 2? No. Is 6 equal to 2? No. Is 6 greater than 2? Yes. 6 is greater than 2, which means this is the problem that we're going to be using, 5x minus 20, and then you just plug it in. Right, f of 2. So, this one's a little bit tricky. Is 2 less than 2? No, technically they're the same number, so it's not less than 2. Is 2 equal to 2? Yes. Is 2 greater than 2? Again, no, they're equal. So we want to make sure we use this category in the middle here, -1. There's no x, which means there's nowhere for me to plug in this 2. And that just means that -1 is my answer.